let's go through the whole process again. It says solve by completing the square. This right here is not a perfect square trinomial because 15 is not a perfect square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just move that 15 to the other side. I'm just going to get rid of it. So x squared minus 14x, I'm going to leave a hole, equals 15. I'm leaving that hole there so that I can fill it with what I want. So 14, before it was doubled, had to have been a 7. Well, how do I get that 7? By having 49 on the end of my problem. But remember, you have to add it on both sides. So now we can factor that. So I get x minus 7 squared. If I actually combine these together, I'm going to get 64. And now I'm ready to take the square root of both sides. So x minus 7 equals 8, and x minus 7 equals negative 8. So x equals 15, x equals negative 1. Okay, here's another one. So on number 12, again, 11 is not a perfect square, so I'm just going to move it to the other side. I'm going to subtract it over. So x squared plus 12x, I'm going to leave a hole there, equals negative 11. So what can I put there instead? Well, if I've got this 12 in the middle, I know that that used to be a 6x because I've divided it by 2. I've cut it in half. And that means that 6 had to come from 36. Okay? Oops. So now we need to factor this into x plus 6. We need to combine this into 25. Now we take the square root of both sides. So x equals negative 1, x equals negative 11. You'll notice on 13 that 15 has already been moved to the side. So I don't even have to worry about moving anything. I'm just looking for what do I want to add on. So I think about 2. I divide 2 by 2, and I get 1. I square it, and I'm going to add a 1 on there. Oops, I forgot to write 15. So I'm going to add 1. So now this all together factored, it would be x plus 1 all squared equals 16. We square root, so x plus 1 equals 4. X plus 1 equals negative 4. So we get 3, and we get negative 5. Okay, there's 3 more problems. Feel free to pause the video at any point and try them out on your own. That's really the best way to ensure that you understand where your misconceptions are, is going ahead and trying it and seeing where you get stuck. Or maybe you don't get stuck, you do the whole thing on your own. But make sure you pause it and take a moment to try things on your own. So I'm going to work these a little bit quicker. So I'm going to move the 5 by subtracting it. And I'm going to add in 9 to both sides because that is the middle term, the b divided by 2 and squared. I'm going to factor this, add this, square root. So x minus 3 equals 2, x minus 3 equals negative 2. So x equals 5, and x equals 1. Remember too, at any point you can always plug these numbers into your original problem to see if they work. Way back in like 5th and 6th grade when you first learned how to solve an equation and you learned to check that way, it still works. If you plug that 5 in, here and here, that'd be 25 minus 30 plus 5, and that would equal 0. So we know we did it right. Okay, number 15. Again, I'm going to move that 24 over. Then I'm going to think about, okay, 10 before I doubled it was 5, so square that is 25. Factor, square root. So x equals 2, x equals negative 12. Last one, I believe, is that right? Yep, last one. The c value has already been moved over, so at this point I'm really just looking to see what do I need to add to each side, which would be 16. Is that right? Half of 8 is 4. 4 squared is 16, yes. So now we factor. this point, I notice there's a negative inside of my square root. We've talked before about how square root means something times itself, but there's no number that I can multiply times itself to create a negative. So honestly, I can just stop at this point and write no real solutions. We briefly mentioned this, but that would create imaginary solutions, but luckily, you're in Algebra 1. We don't have to go that far. You'll learn about that in a couple years. So hopefully, with enough practice, that became an easier topic for you. If not, please make sure you rewind, rewatch, do as much as you need to do, or go to tutoring or talk to your teacher so that you make sure you understand completing the square. We will do part 2 tomorrow, which ups the difficulty just a little bit. So obviously it's important you understand part 1 before we get there.